Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is the 26th of July.
I don't think
2019.
And I stopped Michelle. I'm actually seriously stopping. I'm breaking in because I don't think I've ever been more excited to do a show
Really?
In a long time.
In a long time.
Yeah,
So ever in a long time.
I know. I want to be clear. I'm sure there's really more times, but there's so many big things that I have to share with you guys this week. I wanted to go live with you the day of the Mueller testimony. It was the most epic, wonderful thing that has ever happened to this Russiagate conspiracy, to have the author of the Mueller testimony show the world that he didn't write it. And Bumble.
That's outside of my purview. I can't speak to that. That's what you kept hearing like 100 times. Like, that's outside my purview. I can't speak to that.
I'm going to hit some highlights here, blow some kind of surprises, but he doesn't know.
That's what we do. It's where we're
here. He doesn't know who. No, I'm going to show you the video of it, where his reaction is he doesn't know who Glenn Simpson is. He doesn't know who Freeze GPS is. I'm like, well, either your head is under a rock, you're lying, or you're an Alzheimer patient.
So let me ask you this though, because I've watched a lot of commentary on this since it happened. And some people are throwing out that he was playing
Well, we'll
dumb.
watch it and we'll see. We'll watch it and
so you guys can be the judge of that, whether you think this is all an act.
Right.
You know.
But before I get into that, because I want to have everybody kind of who's going to come show up, we're going to kind of talk about William Barr on the other side of it. And we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard, who is a wonderful human being. She's on the left. She's more, she's definitely liberal. I don't know if I want to call her socialist, but
kind of a little bit.
She wants Medicare for all and a lot of things like that. But she is a wonderful human being. I wish I could be her friend. And
I would be her friend in real life, absolutely.
As you guys are just showing up, get this. Not only is she suing Google for $50 million because they took away her ability to put ads up for like 6 hours, and I think it was directly after the Democratic debates when she really could have like brought in the dough.
Oh yeah,
and
because she blew all of our minds. Which, by the way, did we miss the second one? Like, when is the second one again?
Tuesday.
That's what I thought. It's coming up. It's really exciting. So we're gonna have, and I would love to promise you, take this with a grain of salt. I want to stream it live this time. I want to watch it with you guys, and then we just have Wednesday to skip to Thursday, and all day Thursday we're going to be bringing you guys interviews and stuff like that from people in line while we're waiting for the Trump rally. So next week is going to be an excellent week.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about that. So we're kicking it off with Friday's weekly roundup and all this incredible news.
So two of my favorite people here now, Thomas Massie.
Yes, Lord.
Is auditing the Fed, putting a bill forward to audit the Fed, and Tulsi Gabbard is co-sponsoring this bill.
So not only is my girl with my dude, Thomas Massie, trying to audit the Fed, but she's also suing Google and bringing their tech giant corruption to life.
This is what we call bipartisan. This is what we call coming together.
Yeah.
This is real human beings
together
who have differences of opinions on how certain things should be done. I love Tulsi. I think I would want her to be in the Trump administration because the Trump administration is not about right-wing politics. The Trump administration is about truth and about what makes things work. The Trump administration blows out of the water right and left wing because here's the thing. The idea of the elites is to get you in two different corners so that they can herd you in one way and then herd you in another way because they use Republican voters to get things through all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Big spending, military bills, that's their MO.
Mm-hmm.
Because they make more money that way.
Yep.
So they herd you in that way and they play on your heartstrings there. They play on the left heartstrings with, big bills for illegal immigration and things like that. So what we want to do is not let people play on our heartstrings, but to think straight. So Representative Thomas Massie, my dude, told Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change, a libertarian media organization, that Democrat presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard has just signed on as a co-sponsor of Audit the Fed bill.
Yes!
This could change the world, officially known as the Federal Reserve Transparency Act of 2019. The bill authorizes the General Accountability Office to perform a full audit of the Fed's conduct of monetary policy, including the Fed's mysterious dealings with Wall Street, central banks, and governments. During the interview, Massey said the latest development in attempting to audit the Federal Reserve is that Gabbard signed on as a co-sponsor.
Yes.
She is an amazing human being, by the way. He believes the topic will get some airtime in the upcoming presidential debate.
I love her so much.
He said there are 4 Democrat co-sponsors and 80 Republican co-sponsors for the bill. It was recently passed in the House of Representatives as it heads to the Senate. Massey said, we have passed it in the House, but have never passed it in the Senate because a lot of these people in the House of Representatives who vote for it and support it in the House go to the Senate and decide it's not such a good idea. Radowski then tells Massey about interesting parallels between some presidential candidates, Gabbard and Bernie Sanders, who have an interventionist view along with being critical of the Federal Reserve. Massey responds by saying, well, if you're just trying to sort of tie the anti-war people to the Federal Reserve, I think the closest connection is the Federal Reserve enables the endless wars that are being funded by controlling the value of our currency. And without the massive borrowing and printing of money and controlling of interest rates, we wouldn't be able to sustain a permanent state of war. Last week, Ron Paul recently wrote that Massey needs to expedite the passage of their audit the Fed legislation should the Federal Reserve decide to disobey the will of its creator, Congress, by involving itself in real-time payments. After all, their bipartisan legislation came just 7 votes shy of passing not long ago. With the Fed extending its wings even further and the president finally making good on his promise to push the bill through, it should be all but certain of arriving on his Oval Office desk for signing. With the U.S. infected by a global industrial slowdown and in President Trump's view, a Federal Reserve-caused economic downturn, support for auditing the Fed, will continue to increase among Americans across all political ideologies. It's not just Republicans who demand the audit, but now Gabbard and even Sanders. Auditing the Fed is the first step in changing monetary policy that's created the debt and bubble-based economy, promoted the welfare warfare state, created the most massive wealth and inequality crisis in history, led to the affordable housing crisis, transferred all the wealth to the top 1%. Now, this is where the left and the right should align because this is what has happened. What the Fed does is really short. I really want to get into the Mueller interview. What's going on?
I don't want you leaning in quite that far to really leaning in. Like so I moved her computer a little bit closer. No, stop it.
My eyesight.
Then back up, that's what I'm saying.
Then back.
Unbelievable. This is Sisters. If you're just joining, welcome to Resistance Chicks. We've been like this for 35 years.
All right. Yeah. 3 of the best years of my life all by myself.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It wasn't quite 3. It was 2 years and 8 months.
Joke. Funny. Just kidding.
You just moved it back all the way to where it was.
I know. All right. So listen, that's what we need to move the Federal Reserve all the way back to where it was before it started.
It's really just selfish because when you lean forward, you get the focus. The camera focuses on you, and I'm blurry.
Okay. I'll try to. All right. So what else is Tulsi doing? Tulsi Gabbard is suing Google for $50 million for censoring her campaign. She every time I look at her, because with this gray streak, it's like she's a X-Men character.
No, it really is, and I feel that way about her.
I do too.
I feel definitely X-Men.
Democrat presidential candidate Representative Tulsi Gabbard has filed a federal lawsuit against Google for suspending her campaign's advertising account following the first debate in June. Gabbard was the most searched candidate at the time.
Because she drop it like it's hot.
Yes, Google had suspended the campaign's advertising account for 6 hours from June 27th into June 28th, immediately following the debate, while searches for her were trending. The lawsuit was filed in Los Angeles federal court on Thursday. The New York Times reports they are seeking an injunction against Google to prevent them from continuing to meddle in the election and damages of at least $50 million. Google's discriminatory actions against my campaign are reflective of how dangerous their complete dominance over the internet search is and how the increasing dominance of big tech companies over our public discourse threatens our core American values. And I really feel like we can get the lefty Bernieites on this through this Tulsi thing, so you can see that it will not stop at Alex Jones. It will not stop at Milo Yiannopoulos. It's going to go to people that you actually think are decent human beings as well, but whose side are on the left.
So also, though, I want to speak to why we want to join hands with socialists, essentially, because that's what it seems like we're doing when we talk about the Bernieites and so on.
I think that's because human beings are human beings, and that we always have the same... that the Bernieites and we have the same goals, but we have a different way of getting there, and we have to be able to sit down as human beings and talk to them. Yeah. I don't want to see poor people poor.
The commercial in the background looks crazy.
I know. I can't make it stop. I'm sorry. This is a toothpaste. Let me finish this, and then I can get past the toothpaste thing. This is a threat for free speech, fair elections, and our democracy, and I intend to fight back on behalf of all Americans. A Google spokesperson told The Hill that the account was suspended due to sudden large spending changes that were detected automatically. We have automated systems that flag unusual activity on all advertising accounts, including large spending changes, in order to prevent fraud and protect our customers. In this case, our system triggered a suspension, and the account was reinstated shortly thereafter.
Oh, whatever.
Her campaign says that they had increased spending as because she had become the most searched candidate.
Duh!
The lawsuit also alleges that Google is sending their campaign emails to people's spam folders at a disproportionately high rate compared to other campaigns. Google's arbitrary and capricious treatment of Gabbard's campaign should raise concerns for policymakers everywhere about the company's ability to use its dominance to impact political discourse in a way that interferes with the upcoming 2020 presidential election, the lawsuit says. To this day, Google has not provided a straight answer, let alone a credible one, as to why Tulsi's political speech was silenced when millions of people wanted to hear from her.
Now, so when we're talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and she does have socialist leanings for sure. We're not going to hide that. Okay, it's a fact. However, she is a sound-minded human being that thinks that is the way to help people. Okay, so in that respect, she's just slightly misguided, but she is a solid, very intelligent person. And if you don't want a Democrat candidate that actually can challenge Donald Trump, then you should hate on Tulsi. You should not want her out there. You should want her smothered. You should want Google to go full bore against her, because she is the only person, the only candidate that they have that is real. That is a real human being that has a chance to unify the left and the right.
Andrew Yang's real too.
And okay, but so in my opinion,
he's way out there.
I'm torn, right? Because I don't want Tulsi Gabbard to be president. I want Donald Trump to be president. However, I want her to be given a fair shake. That is what democracy is all about.
I'm not worried about Tulsi Gabbard going up against Trump, because the left does not like her.
No, they won't give her a chance.
They won't give her a chance.
Refuse.
She's a human being, and she would get along well with Trump.
Yeah.
Those debates would be really actually interesting, and I think we'd learn a lot.
Yeah.
So I would love to see her up on those stage. I think it would be finally a debate that would be good for humanity and good for our country. Yeah. And it would be like actually watching
mudslinging. From Trump or from Tulsi.
I think you'd be literally going to a game where you admire two teams.
Yeah.
And you enjoy watching the teams play.
Yeah.
And I admire her, and I would love to see her on the debate stage. I'd love to see her go up against Donald Trump, just like anybody wants to see the Bengals play the Steelers or the Patriots or something.
Right.
I think people watch these for a reason. And I think that, in office, she does more good than she does harm. And I really like her. All right. So
anybody that can talk about ending the Fed is my friend.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they
get
against the
anti-war
wars. Right. So I guess we want to talk about Jeffrey Epstein here for a minute, because we're going to spend the bulk of our show on the Mueller testimony.
Sure.
And a lot of videos here. So I want to make sure that I give some of these other news stories a chance before we run out of time. Jeffrey Epstein was found curled up
in a fetal position
in his cell.
Now, he's on suicide watch, and that was blared all over news stations. Epstein's on suicide watch.
Yeah.
Well, you know how most celebrities commit suicide? They're suicided. That means that somebody suicides them. That's called murder. Making it look like suicide. So they're already laying it into the American public's mind so that when it happens, it'll be believable. Like, oh, of course he committed suicide. We knew it because they were watching him.
Right. So he has a lot of dirt on a lot of powerful people. Okay? And Ann Coulter even said, get this man into 24-hour, lockdown because he's got a lot of dirt on a lot of people, and they're going to want to kill him. And the Clinton body count was immediately started to trend on Twitter, and the left was like, oh my gosh, it's Russia. And I'm just like, heck no, I ain't Russia. Clinton body count's real. Totally real. Totally real. Totally real. So you have Jeffrey Epstein was moved to a suicide watch unit in New York City detention center after the financier facing sex trafficking charges was found unconscious in his cell Tuesday morning.
Pause. How do you knock yourself unconscious if you're on suicide watch? I mean, like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
He was found in the fetal position, unconscious. Like, okay, that means you were afraid and somebody hit you.
A judge rejected his request to be placed under house arrest because he has so many ways to get out of this country. But for his own good, it might have been better. But I don't know. Really. You had a lot of little leaks are coming out. So recently, one of the men who did telecommunications on the island for Jeffrey Epstein said that he wanted a signal, and he didn't want to drop a signal anywhere on the island. So he was paid like over $400,000 telecommunication guy to run all of these lines, these Wi-Fi lines, you know, these telephone lines
town
all over the island.
Okay, so hang on one second though, because you know we grew up around wealth, even though we had none. Because our family was very wealthy. And so I can imagine wealth, like pretty well I can imagine it. Mm-hmm. But I can't imagine the kind of wealth that would allow you to hire somebody and pay them $400,000.
Just to run wires all over your island. Well, here's the thing. He said that he feels guilty because he saw these girls. He said they would get off of the airplane and they would have like Prada bags and like they would get off the airplane and they would all like have college sweatshirts on, but he's like, but they didn't look like they were in college. He said they all looked like they were in high school, and like a ton of these girls. And he said he looked the other way for a long time, and then finally he quit because he has 2 girls at home, and he knew, you know, this isn't right. He had a bad feeling about it. The pilots have been subpoenaed in his case, so we're gonna see where that goes. Let's see.
I wish, though, they'd get on, like, making him some sort of deal. Like, I gotta be honest. I don't have a problem with making deals with crooks if it's going to take down even more people. Like, because I think that that's the greater good. So I think that they need to be getting in there, like, getting recordings of the information that he has, like, making deals with him.
That's what I think. He needs a death penalty for what he's done.
I don't know. But don't you think, like, getting Hillary or Bill Clinton would be, like, a better trade-off?
We'll see. I don't want him back on the street because he was
not back on the street. I'm saying, like, okay, you get life in prison instead of the death penalty,
well,
because now the death penalty is an option again.
For what all the stuff that they had on him in 2008, he only got 18 months in his little, you know.
I think he should get life in prison, and that should be like not being put to death should be his what he gets out of.
Jeffrey Epstein's longtime personal pilots have been subpoenaed by federal prosecutors in Manhattan, according to the Wall Street Journal. The grand jury subpoenas were served earlier this month following Epstein's July 6th arrest at Teterboro Airport in New Jersey on charges of sex trafficking of minors. He has pleaded not guilty to the years-long scheme in which prosecutors allege the wealthy financiers sexually abused dozens of young girls. It's unknown how many of Epstein's pilots were subpoenaed or whether they are cooperating. Testimonies from the pilots could be used by federal investigators in their efforts to corroborate accounts from Mr. Epstein's accusers. So there's a lot of girls that have come forward lately who have said, you know, I went to there, I went to here, I went to here, I went to here.
Well, and I think to speak to why you should listen to these girls now is because there's power in unity in numbers.
Yeah.
And there's also power in growing up. And recognizing what happened to you, how it was not normal, how you're damaged because of it, and then coming forward. And I think that should be heralded and praised.
So it looks like he might have known that the rest was coming because Epstein sold his infamous and evidence-rich Lolita Express weeks before his arrest. Just weeks.
Well, of course, you know. Okay, so they can't arrest him until they've gathered all they need, and so he had to have known.
Lawyers said that Epstein only owns one private jet. He sold the other in June 2019.
Wow.
Just weeks.
So speaking of lawyers, did you know that Jussie Smollett's lawyers weren't even licensed to practice in Illinois?
No, I didn't. That's funny.
Isn't
How
that
does that
funny?
even work out?
Isn't that funny?
So, women in the lawsuits have accused Mr. Epstein of conspiring with his pilots and other associates from at least 1998 to 2002 to facilitate sex abuse and avoid law enforcement detection. One woman has said in court filings that she was a minor in 2000. Mr. Epstein transported her regularly on his jet to be sexually exploited by his associates and his friends. According to flight logs, former President Bill Clinton flew on the Lolita test. We're going to keep talking about this 27 times. Many of those times Clinton had a Secret Service with him, and other times he did not.
So we need to be talking to these Secret Service men.
Yeah. So other famous guests include actor Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, who flew with Clinton to Africa.
I have always said that Kevin Spacey was the creepiest guy. Like, all you have to do is look at some of these movies that they make. Like, I can't even watch his movies. I won't watch a movie with him, and he's just
somebody
so creepy.
Played a movie with him where he did do bad things to the teenage girl. Yeah. He's just a sick dude. He's just so sick.
Sicko.
All right, so those flight logs are going to find a lot, and hopefully he's going down.
And I hope that they don't suicide him first. Like, sincerely.
Yeah.
I hope he's able to be protected in prison so he can tell all the stuff that he knows on all these big people.
All right. So, again, we're going to get to this Mueller testimony, but I want to get to a few more things.
I love this face.
I know. Is that so funny?
He's like, and those glasses, and I think he has blue eyes. My mom always said that blue-eyed people, they give them contacts in movies because you trust blue-eyed people more.
Really? Mm-hmm. Trump administration resumes federal death penalty, schedules execution for 5 child killers. So each state has a death penalty, but I guess the federal government had rescinded the death penalty. But Trump he's talked about the death penalty a lot of times. He wants a death penalty for drug dealers. He's like, you cause somebody else to die, then you need to die. So the U.S. Department of Justice, the DOJ, announced yesterday morning, that it is resuming the federal death penalty, starting with the execution of 5 death row inmates who have been convicted of murdering children. In a press release, Attorney General William Barr has directed the Federal Bureau of Prisons to adopt a proposed amendment to the federal execution protocol, clearing the way for the federal government to resume capital punishment after a nearly 2-decade lapse, and bringing justice to victims of the most horrific crimes.
So hang on for a second. Does your article go into the difference between somebody that is convicted federally versus, like, so the federal government can bring charges against you, okay? And you can be in a federal penitentiary, right? And then the states can bring charges against you. And so that's what they were looking into with Jussie Smollett, speaking of Jussie Smollett, where the state let him off, but because he had mail fraud,
that's a federal
then
crime.
It's a federal crime, and so he could be prosecuted federally. And so we see this come up a lot, and it's kind of confusing. So why would it be important for the federal government to be able to have the death penalty? Because somebody can be prosecuted federally, and then never be put to death because for the past how many years it's been off of the table. So if you committed a death penalty worthy crime, you would want the Fed to prosecute you versus your state so that you couldn't be put to death.
Exactly.
But now that's all over.
The Attorney General has further directed the acting director of the BOP, Hugh Hurwitz, to schedule the executions of 5 death row inmates convicted of murdering. Now they're on death row. They were given the death penalty, and in some cases torturing and raping children and the elderly.
Oh my goodness, y'all got to go.
Congress has expressly authorized the death penalty through legislation adopted by the people's representatives in both the House of Congress and signed by the President. Said William Barr. Under administrations of both parties, the Department of Justice has sought the death penalty against the worst criminals, including these 5 murderers, each of whom was convicted by a jury of his peers after a full and fair proceeding. The Justice Department upholds the rule of law, blah, blah, blah. The DOJ also provided detailed descriptions of the inmates and the crimes they committed. They included Daniel Lewis Lee, a white supremacist.
So Trump is allowing a white supremacist to be executed?
Who murdered an 8-year-old girl and her family.
What?
Lesmond Mitchell, who brutally murdered a grandmother and her granddaughter.
No, he didn't.
Wesley Ira Perky, who raped and murdered a teenage girl and bludgeoned a disabled elderly woman to death.
What is...
So these are like double murders. These are like double or triple or quadruple homiciders. Okay? These aren't just... Alfred Bourgeois, how do you say Bourgeois, who sexually abused and murdered his daughter, a toddler.
No, you don't.
Dustin Lee Honkin, who shot 5 people to death, including 2 children. The DOJ announcement comes just days after former Vice President Joe Biden announced his new criminal justice policy, which includes ending the federal death penalty. Biden's policy was a reversal of decades of a tough-on-crime approach, which is now out of favor with the Democrat Party and is blamed for racism in the criminal justice system. So, here we go.
Are any of these people that are going to be killed not white?
I don't know.
I'm just saying. The one guy's a white supremacist. It should put to rest the idea that, Trump is just some sort of racist, whatever.
This is a big story. And like you said, we're going to get to the Mueller proceedings, but there's so many big stories that each one actually needs to have its own show. This is Jessica Yaniv. He is a transgender woman, meaning he was born a biological male.
Okay.
We talked about Jessica before. I'm not exactly sure what his born name is. We're going to do our best not to misgender someone, but he was born with male genitalia. And I think we did talk about this a little bit because we talked about it on Sunday. I'm going to talk about it again for you guys here. In Canada, he has filed suit 16 beauticians and anestheticians for not waxing his genitalia, because he says he is a female, and these are females. He's already bragged about shutting down one business. This is where the transgenderism goes, because you can just be a dude, he calls himself a transgender female lesbian, so the dude is attracted to girls. And he's attracted to little girls.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, there are, LifeSite News has contacted, and I don't want to bring them up for you, but he contacted one of the girls. He would go into these chat rooms, and he would chat rooms where you could ask questions, and people would answer your questions. So he would ask questions like, OMG, what do you do if a girl's on her that time of the month and she wants a pad, and do girls change naked, and what if you see a tampon dangling out, and all these different things. And then he went on to more details, asking, just sexually explicitly going after this girl. And then even more. So he's a really big pervert. Now, Richie Jarvis has tweeted out a screenshot of those things. I don't want to bring them up because I don't want you to see them and read them, but they're real.
Wow.
And he asked, is this feminism? We talked about this on Sunday. Is this feminism to make a girl, a woman who does not want to touch male genitalia? Is this feminism? Is this where transgenderism is going? Is that where this is happening? Right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, actually, to me, as awful as this is what he's doing, it's good news for us, for sound-minded people, because when they start to go, we always say, you're so far left, you swing right again or whatever. But they get so crazy that their arguments come back and bite them in the butt.
Right.
I mean, and that's just the truth of it, because they want to be literally, they want to be pro-female, pro-feminist, like, you can't make me do anything with my body, you can't, yada, yada, yada. And then there's this. And so then what does a Madonna or someone like that do with this case?
Are you really a bigot for not wanting to wax a male's genitalia?
Right.
Other people are saying it in a much crude way.
So, okay, I get that. That's fine. But what are they saying? What are these... Are the lefties talking about it at all? Are they joining the conversation and giving an opinion?
They're not. Just Ricky Gervais is probably one of the more left-leaning people. Of course, you've got Piers Morgan out there saying stuff. Okay, so here, his name is Jonathan. Here's the name in the article here. And in the aftermath of this person's, going after the anestheticians.
No. An anesthetician will put you to sleep.
Sorry.
Esthetician.
How do you say that?
Esthetician.
It's people who take those things and they get all the stuff out of your pores.
Just
and
say
stuff.
esthetician.
They wax your eyebrows and stuff. And in some cases they give you bikini wax, and he wants one too. So, 2 victims have come forward, and as unbelievable as it might be, their intersecting stories are even more shocking. 21-year-old Ashley Smith of Ontario, whose name is being altered due to trauma and for protection of her work and family, says she was victimized when, like this other girl, she was a teen. Ashley was just 14. A superfan of the teen pop group Kimmerelli, Smith met Yaniv in 2015 on the band's Facebook. I commented something, and Yaniv replied back, I thought it was the other girl who worked for them, Ariel, but Yaniv clarified that it was them instead and added me to Facebook, Twitter, and Skype. And this is what happens, very interestingly. This is Yaniv right here, I believe. With this Kimmerelli, Smith explains this photo is often used by Yaniv to show girls he knew this band. So that's him. And that's his face now as a woman.
He's very, very young. I mean, 20 years old. 20 years
he's
old.
Like 35 now.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
It said 20 at the top of the article.
She is 21 years old.
No, go back up.
21-year-old Jessica Ruppel provided post-millennial
all right, there we go. So how old is he now?
He's like 35.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was very confused.
So Jessica Ruppel provided the post-millennial with evidence of explosive allegations of sexual interference she experienced as a young teen at the hands of Jonathan Jessica Yaniv. Wow. Okay. Then there's 2 more. And so, like, there's this band, and he's like, here, I know these people, right? And this is me. And he presented himself as the manager for the girl group, which earned the
so
trust.
He's a liar.
I was excited. I thought this was my chance to meet the band. She explains that Yaniv called her one day singing one of the songs that the band was about to release, and they knew that the fans of this band would jump on any opportunity to try and meet them or get close with them. That's exactly what she wanted. And he did this. He really is a mastermind of manipulation. And guess what? He's still on Twitter. Wow. He's still nothing has happened to this person. And a person that called him out was suspended and taken off Twitter. A Canadian.
Get out.
He is a sick, twisted person, and messing with little girls' heads. And he goes off of Twitter. And she goes on Twitter, and I did this, and I got this person kicked off, and blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
And you can read about this. This is from the Post-Millennial. 14 and 15-year-old girls, and a lot of the girls are coming forward because, it's embarrassing. We can testify to the fact that when you get online, you don't know who's on the other end. Mm-hmm. Their pictures could be one thing. They could say, right. Be very careful who you interact with. Michelle and I are very careful. We love you guys, but we're very careful who we interact with online because you just never know what happens. And you can kind of go on your screenshots here. I don't want to go into it, but he manipulated them. I love you, I need you, and then went into really crazy sexual things. A lot of it, like he was really into menstrual cycles, and he would ask all the different girls like the same thing. What do I do about menstrual cycles? What if she's bleeding? What if da-da-da-da-da? And it's just really a really sick, twisted thing. And he talks about sexual things with these young girls. And this person is still on Twitter. And I want to bring this to the site because this person is the epitome of why you don't let men into women's bathrooms, because you have sick, twisted people who are happy to dress up like a girl and go and go after your teenage daughters and manipulate them. And so you need to know.
Didn't you tell me that this particular person was trying to get some sort of big orgy gathered with like young people?
He is. I don't know if it's gone through or not. He wants a topless swim party for 14. In Canada, you can swim topless for 14 to 24-year-olds with no parents allowed. This guy is like a pedophile out there way in the open, still on Twitter, and nobody's stopping him. And we can't even call him a he because somehow we're misgendering somebody. But can we call him a pedophile?
Right.
He's a pedophile. He's a pedophile. We're getting to Mueller. Here's another article.
Okay, now this one, watch for the steam coming out of my ears. Just wait. Just wait. It's gonna come.
106-year-old. I can't believe she's literally 106 years old, lives in her own home, is about to lose her home that she's had since 1943.
They gotta go. First of all,
Jersey
do they
tax.
have a GoFundMe set up for her? Like, that's what I want to know to start with.
Here's
before we get to the injustice.
Yes, there is a yes.
Okay.
You shouldn't need a GoFundMe. They have raised the amount that she needs for the property taxes, but you shouldn't need it. You shouldn't need it. And why in the world? And I'm just going to tell you how the government is crazy.
Well, and that's just for this year. It's going to happen again next year. What is she going to get a GoFundMe every year until she breaks?
Exactly. It's $9,000 a year, I think, for in New Jersey now. Property taxes keep going up and up. Now, this is why I hate property taxes. And my main reason why I hate property taxes is because it kicks people out of their homes. And government doesn't care. Because you know why? There are no programs. You can't go down to you can go down to the welfare office and you can get 10 grand worth of food stamps a year for you and your family of 4.
Right.
But you can't get 10
housing.
grand and you can't get 2 grand in property taxes, which is what, around here, if you got a decent home, you're between $2,000 and $3,000 a year. Some people, you have a nicer home. I've seen some of my neighbors at between $4,000 and $6,000 a year.
So it goes to show
for just a decent
economic
home.
Disparity between like the Midwest and the coastal cities, and I mean the coastal states.
But here's the thing, you guys. You have to pull your kids out of public school because that's the only way to suck, and they won't need it. This is how they control people.
Well, and I would like to clarify for our viewers that use the public school system. If you use the public school system and you have another way out, you can't go touting that you don't like property taxes, because that's where the property taxes go.
60%
to the public school system.
Yeah, and I don't even think there shouldn't be property taxes for fire and EMS is one thing. You pay a tax. You should know this is what I'm paying, not based on what not based on my property tax.
Yeah.
It should just be a tax that everybody has to pay for fire and EMS. Basic services our government set up for fire, fire, EMS, police, and military.
It's unconstitutional because John Locke wrote the right to life, liberty, and property.
Right.
And then Thomas Jefferson expounded that to the pursuit of happiness. But within that is the right to property. And you don't have the right to property when they can come and tax you to the point where they kick you off your property. What I would like to see more than a GoFundMe is a lawyer on her side that will help her fight this constitutionally.
Yeah. So here she is. Her name is Rose Estwanek. Must come up with $8,400 to avoid having her property sold in a tax sale by Cranford on September 18th, around the time of her 107th birthday. I made a joke to Michelle, like, after 100, you shouldn't have to pay any tax ever. Like, no property tax, no sales tax, no income tax, no tax. Come on, you reach 100.
No, I agree.
Seriously? Come on now.
No, because then they're just going to tax you for being old. They're going to add an old people's tax. Don't give them an idea.
After the average death of everybody, shouldn't everybody after that, if you
didn't
made it
die on
that,
time, now you got to pay a tax just to breathe. You've been sucking in too much oxygen.
Said that the mother doesn't even understand that she may be forced to leave since she's lived there since 1943. Property taxes on the modest 2-story house in a development near Unme Park this year were $9,725, an increase of about $350 from last year, but an increase of more than $2,300 since 2010.
Wow.
The average property tax bill in Cranford last year was $11,375, an annual increase of 3.9%.
Unbelievable.
New Jersey's property taxes have long been among the highest in the nation. Unlike the state and federal income taxes, which are based on annual income levels, the property tax system is considered regressive because it's more punishing to a fixed and lower income. That's what I want to talk about. Like, everybody's like, hey, we're going to pay taxes and we want to help the people who need help. But you're not. You're literally taking homes from people. It's absolutely insane. New Jersey seniors can apply for a seniors freeze program, which reimburses homeowners for the difference between the first year they qualified for the program and an increase in the taxes since that year. The homeowner has to earn less than $89,000 in income. So she found out that, New Jersey, as a report earlier this year, found that the amount of assistance provided by the state's property tax relief programs, including senior freeze and homestead rebates, has declined. The younger daughter, who lost her job 8 years ago and has been caring for her mother round the clock ever since, said she has been deferring property tax payments. she has been told deferring property tax payments is not an option. It's not that I don't want to pay them. It's just that we can't pay them at this point. They just keep adding on. The bill keeps getting larger and larger. She said efforts to raise money to pay off the taxes have been unsuccessful. I was trying, but my mother went into the hospital at the end of the year, and I just couldn't get up enough money. So people have raised money for her, but it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. If you're taking care of your elderly parents, you should be able to stay in the house. It's wrong. It's wrong, and that's why I'm going to bring it to your attention, because I want you to talk about this. And fortunately, most of the comments on the Resistance Chicks Facebook page were we can't have these property taxes. They're unconstitutional.
Right.
So, all right. So, are you ready? Are you ready? I don't think you're ready.
You're not ready.
I don't think you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm so excited. So we're going to get to Mueller.
I have other stories, but I think I'm going to go straight into Mueller.
Let's get to Mueller. Are you guys ready to go to Mueller?
So many.
I want to know in the chat how many of you watched the Mueller the Mueller testimony, like a good portion of it. Because if you did, none of this is really going to come as a surprise.
Well, okay, here's another story I wanted to bring to you guys. Bette Midler tweeted out, "Look, there are African American men in this shot. How much did he pay them to be the background?"
Serious.
So Christy Alley, I'm not kidding, this is hilarious. I love when Hollywood just does stuff and I can just say, hey, this is one of the most racist, degrading jokes I've ever seen on Twitter, and that says a lot. We get it, Bet. You hate Trump, and that's your right. But to imply black men have to be paid to celebrate their own political views is pure and real racism. And background, WTF.
Wow.
I've been to Trump rallies. I'm excited to go to Trump rallies. The blacks for Trump are excited. They're loved. It's a beautiful thing. So the left are the real racists, by the way, just in case you didn't know.
But thanks for taking the time, Bet, to point out that black men support Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you did. Well done.
Exactly. All right. So I'm gonna kind of do something reverse, because I want you to. I watched it the other way, but I want you to see Trump's reaction first, and then we're gonna go into some. Oh, here we go.
Republican Party, our country, there was no defense of what Robert Mueller was trying to defend, in all fairness to Robert Mueller. Whether his performance was a bad one or a good one, I think everybody understands that. I think everybody understands what's going on. There was no defense to this ridiculous hoax, this witch hunt that's been going on for a long time. Pretty much from the time I came down on the escalator with our First Lady. And it's a disgrace what happened. But I think today proved a lot to everybody. In fact, some of my biggest opponents wrote things today that I wouldn't have believed they would have written, and I appreciate that they did that. This has been a very bad thing for our country. And despite everything we've been through, it's been an incredible 2.5 years for our country. The administration, our president, me, we've done a great job. We've got the strongest stock market, the best unemployment numbers, the most number of people ever working in the history of our country right now, almost 160 million. Our military has been rebuilt and getting even stronger. We've done a great job, and we've done it under this terrible phony cloud, a phony cloud, that's all it was. And they should be ashamed of themselves, absolutely ashamed. And you know who knew it was a phony cloud more than anyone else? Was Schiff and Nadler and Schumer and Pelosi, every one of them. They all knew it was phony stuff. And you look at the polls are showing it maybe more than anybody else or anything else. And I've had my best polls, and I don't say why, but people see what's gone on in our country with this whole thing. I've been going through it for 3 years. For 3 years, all nonsense. So this was a very big day for our country. This was a very big day for the Republican Party. And you could say it was a great day for me, but I don't even like to say that. It's great. I'll tell you what, I very much appreciate those incredible warriors that you watched today on television, Republicans, that defended something and defended something very powerful, very important, because
like
they
Jim
were really
Jordan.
defending our country. More than anything else, they were defending our country. But they were warriors, and they've been warriors for a long time. The Democrats lost so big today. Their party is in shambles right now. They've got the squad leading their party. They are a mess. Where even you take a look at Scribe and you take a look at so many of the people that were the most outspoken, and they say this was a devastating day for the Democrats. And you know it, John, and everybody else knows it. This was a devastating day for the Democrats. We were, if you take a look at not only the report, beyond the report, take a look at not what he said, but what he was forced to say. And even your networks and your network and your network and every one of these networks, they put up their hands. You know, we had a couple of cases with, actually we had about 6 cases where they asked our people, our representatives, television networks, please don't come in tonight. We're not going to be doing much on it. And the reason they're not, because it's over. Go ahead.
She's asked if you can be
so WikiLeaks is a hoax just like everything else, and all of those problems having to do with crime were the biggest hoax of all. It was a witch hunt, a total witch hunt. And when you saw Robert Mueller's statement, the earlier statement, and then he did a recap, he did a correction later on in the afternoon, and you know what that correction was, and you still ask the question. You know why? Because you're fake news. And you're one of the most. And let me just tell you, the fact that you even asked that question, you're fake news. Because you know what? He totally corrected himself in the afternoon, and you know that just as well as anybody. Caitlin. I don't know whose answers weren't. I guess his answers weren't, because if you look, the whole report, you take a look at what they did, some of the things that he didn't even know about. Some of the things he didn't even know what was going on. But you know, in the end, what he did, he actually probably came through for himself. The performance was obviously not very good. He had a lot of problems. But what he showed more than anything else is that this whole thing has been 3 years of embarrassment and waste of time for our country.
Wow. And that's so true. And we're like, Leah's going to show you different clips, but I wanted to get to some of the comments because we haven't been doing comments in a while here. But when I had asked who had watched it, Mr. Red said he did. Lancer said I watched it. Tom says I haven't watched it. He's been preoccupied with Great Britain, Boris Johnson, and Brexit this week. Sorry, Americans. We will get to that on Sunday. Yeah. Gonzalez says I watched. I saw clips on Twitter. Maia did not watch it. Stuart the Brit says I watched Mueller, like watching paint dry. And so I'm so happy that some of you were
I'm going to start out with the most epic one here. I'm going to sneeze first.
You think Jim Jordan's was the most epic? Yeah, it was pretty good.
Jim Jordan for president. After I watched this, he literally laid down the case for why this is a witch hunt.
I would love to see that happen. I would love
so I hope that we
can
see him big because he's got a big personality. I couldn't believe what I was watching when I watched it, because his answers, even the Democrats couldn't get him to answer anything, and they were just like trying to be like, hey, you're our star player, you're our witness, and they were embarrassed. Okay. 2.2 million views on this Jim Jordan clip.
They should never have had him come, and they're all regretting it, and it's so great.
Joseph Mifsud on February 10th, 2017. In that interview, Mr. Mifsud lied. Point this out on page 193, volume 1. Mifsud denied. Mifsud also falsely stated. In addition, Mifsud omitted. 3 times he lied to the FBI, yet you didn't charge him with the crime.
Excuse me, did you say one? I'm sorry, did you say 193?
Volume 1, 193. He lied 3 times, you pointed out in the report. Why didn't you charge him with the crime?
I can't get into internal deliberations with regard who would or would not be.
Charge a lot of other people for making false statements. Let's remember this.
Here it comes.
2016, the FBI did something they probably haven't done before. They spied on 2 American citizens associated with a presidential campaign, George Papadopoulos and Carter Page. With Carter Page, they went to the FISA court. They used the now famous dossier as part of the reason they were able to...
So I want to stop this right here because Jim Jordan, he breaks this down a lot on Fox News or whatever, but it's very convoluted and it's very confusing because what they did was corrupt. It was wrong. And they tried to do it under the table and tried not to get caught.
Right.
And Devin Nunes and Jim Jordan and, even Mark Meadows and a lot of these people have spent countless hours trying to untangle this mess. I have goosebumps because what happened during this testimony was all that time of trying to untangle the mess, all the time of telling people, well, I've seen some documents, but I can't tell you, or I've seen this, but I can't talk about this, or we've heard this, and all these different, blah, blah, blah. We're just like, okay, get to the punchline. What we saw here from all the Representative Radcliffe, what we saw from these men who spent hours studying this, this was their punchlines.
Yeah.
Okay?
Get the warrant and spy on Carter Page for a better part of a year. With Mr. Papadopoulos, they didn't go to the court. They used human sources. All kinds of, from about the moment Papadopoulos joins the Trump campaign, you got all these people all around the world starting to swirl around him. Names like Hal, Allner, Milford, Thompson, meeting in Rome, London, all kinds of places.
I have you hardlined in, so anything
even sent a lady posing as somebody else, went by the name Azra Turk, even dispatched her to London to spy on Mr. Papadopoulos.
This was our government.
In one of these meetings, Mr. Papadopoulos is talking to a foreign diplomat, and he tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. That diplomat then contacts the FBI, and the FBI opens an investigation based on that fact. You point this out on page 1 of the report. July 31st, 2016, they open the investigation based on that piece of information. Diplomat tells Papadopoulos, Papadopoulos tells the diplomat, Russians have dirt on Clinton. Diplomat tells the FBI. What I'm wondering is, who told Papadopoulos? How'd he find out?
I can't get into the evidentiary file.
Yes, you can, because you wrote about it. You gave us the answer. Page 192 of the report, you tell us who told him. Joseph Milford. Joseph Milford's
the fact that he had to look down at his report. He has to know what all is in his report, but he didn't write the report. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. This man didn't write it. I believe he didn't even read it.
So what I love is I saw a meme that had Mueller, and he was looking at his report, and it said, when your mommy read your book and did your book report, and then your teacher asks you about it.
The guy who told Papadopoulos. The mysterious professor who lives in Rome and London, teaches in 2 different universities. This is the guy who told Papadopoulos. He's the guy who starts it all. And when the FBI interviews him, he lies 3 times, and yet you don't charge him with a crime. You charge Rick Gates for false statements. You charge Paul Manafort for false statements. You charge Michael Cohen with false statements. You charge Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, with false statements. But the guy who puts the country through this whole saga, starts it all for 3 years we've lived this now, he lies, and you guys don't charge him. And I'm curious as to why.
Well, I can't get into it, and it's obvious, I think, that we can't get into charging decisions.
When the FBI interviewed him in February, FBI interviews him in February, when the special counsel's office interviewed Milford, did he lie to you guys?
Can't get into that.
Did you interview Milford?
Can't get into that.
Is Milford Western intelligence or Russian intelligence?
Can't get into that.
A lot of things you can't get into.
He's
What's
like
interesting, you can charge 13 Russians no one's ever heard of, no one's ever seen, no one's ever going to hear of them, no one's ever going to see them. You can charge them. You can charge all kinds of people who are around the president with false statements. But the guy who launches the guy who puts this whole story in motion, you can't charge him. I think that's amazing.
I'm not certain I agree with your characterizations.
Well, I'm reading from your report. Milford told Papadopoulos. Papadopoulos tells the diplomat tells the FBI opens the investigation July 31st, 2016, and here we are 3 years later, July of 2019, the country's been put through this, and the central figure who launches it all lies to us, And you guys don't hunt him down and interview him again, and you don't charge him with a crime. Now, here's the good news. Here's the good news.
Here it comes. Wait.
The president was falsely accused of conspiracy. The FBI does a 10-month investigation, and James Comey, when we deposed him a year ago, told us at that point they had nothing. You do a 22-month investigation. At the end of that 22 months, you find no conspiracy. And what's the Democrats want to do? They want to keep investigating. They want to keep going. Maybe a better course of action is to figure out how the false accusation started. Maybe it's to go back and actually figure out why Joseph Milford was lying to the FBI. And here's the good news.
Here it comes.
Here's the good news.
I love it.
That's exactly what Bill Barr's doing. And thank goodness for that. That's exactly what the Attorney General and John Durham are doing. They're going to find out why we went through this three-year saga and get to the bottom of it.
Oh my gosh, Jim Jordan.
So I want to break that down just a little bit for you to understand. The FBI and the CIA, too, they sent these people to try to entrap Papadopoulos all over the world. They were assets of the FBI. And supposedly a diplomat who's working with our government somehow was a honeypot for Papadopoulos. But they also, who's Joseph Milford, who told Papadopoulos the first time? It's in the report that Joseph Milford told Papadopoulos that the Russians had dirt on Clinton. It was planted there, and you'll see that Mueller says it was not my purview to investigate anything that had to do with Trump, with Russia, that wasn't connected to Trump as well. So if it was connected to Russia and the Clintons, not my purview. He was actually not charged with being able to go look at Russian interference in Trump. He was to look at Russian interference.
But he literally was under the table. That's what he was charged.
Molly Edmund says Mueller doesn't seem remotely familiar with his report or his investigation or even his own recent statements and letters. He also appears to have contradicted himself repeatedly on the OLC opinion issue, which is not a minor one. So this is Steve Shabbat from our representative.
But we also have Jim Jordan representing not our district, but just Ohio for us. So we got a lot of good guys.
Steven Crowder says, high school flashback, when you didn't read the assignment and the teacher asks you a question.
When discussing the June 2016 Trump Tower meeting, you referenced, quote, the firm that produced the Steele reporting, unquote. The name of that firm was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
And you're on page 103?
103, that's correct, volume 2. When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not familiar with that.
Stop the presses. Stop everything.
I think Tucker Carlson said it best when he said, how come every household in America is more familiar with Fusion GPS than the guy that was investigating it?
I can't even, we have to stop here right now. Mueller was charged with investigating this Trump-Russia connection. The Pfizer report was based on the dossier. And I know all this stuff. He's the guy in charge of investigating all of this.
That's what makes me think he has to be playing stupid, because he does know this stuff. I think he's playing dumb.
Well, let me just help. It's not a trick question. Right? It was Fusion GPS. Now, Fusion GPS produced the opposition research document widely known as the Steele dossier, and the owner of Fusion GPA was someone named Glenn Simpson. Are you familiar with?
This is outside my purview.
Okay. When discussing the June 2000...
That's outside my purview.
Oh my goodness. See, again I think he's playing stupid, because it's like this. I think he was told, listen, you have to go and testify. He did not want to. You have to go and testify. And they said, listen, unless you want to be thrown in jail for the rest of your life, you have a chance to look like a stupid, demented old man who doesn't know anything and very incompetent in your job, or you're going to go to jail. And I think he chose playing stupid and looking stupid. And I think it was probably eating him up inside.
Could you repeat that, please? That went a little fast for me. Pardon, you can give me the citation. I can look at the citation, and I can you repeat the last part of that question? And you're on page 103. I'm not familiar with that. This is outside my purview. It's outside my purview. Outside my purview. I'm not going to get into that. I do not recall. I'm sorry. I did not know that. I can't get into it. Well, I can't get into it. Can't get into that. Can't get into that. That's beyond my purview. It's not within my purview. It's not my purview. Pardon me? Can you ask? Who else were you talking about? And the question was, can you remind me which paragraph, exactly which paragraph are you looking at? What was your question? No, I don't have any knowledge of that occurring. I don't have any knowledge. Are you questioning that? I can't get into the
scope of influence or concerns of something. Range of experience or thought.
So he doesn't, it's not in his scope of influence or concern to look at Fusion GPS or Glenn Simpson, who worked with Steele to get oh my gosh. I can't even, I'm not even going to go.
He's faking it.
All right, here we go. Here's John Radcliffe.
Can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined?
I cannot, but this is a unique situation.
Well, you can't. Time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at you can't find it because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist. The special counsel's job, nowhere does it say that you were to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or that the special counsel report should determine whether or not to exonerate him. It's not in any of the documents. It's not in your appointment order. It's not in the special counsel regulations. It's not in the OLC opinions. It's not in the Justice Manual, and it's not in the principles of federal prosecution. Nowhere do those words appear together because respectfully, Director, it was not the special counsel's job to conclusively determine Donald Trump's innocence or to exonerate him because the bedrock principle of our justice system is a presumption of innocence. It exists for everyone. Everyone is entitled to it, including sitting presidents. And because there is a presumption of innocence, prosecutors never, ever need to conclusively determine it. Now, Director...
There was more to that was really, really good. And I think that a lot of people misunderstand that. When someone goes to trial or they are presented before a judge or a jury or whatever, the prosecutor's job, okay, is to prove that they are guilty, but the judge and the jury are the ones that decide whether someone is innocent. And if a prosecutor doesn't have enough evidence to even try to prove that someone is guilty of something, that doesn't mean that they get to say, okay, well, now I'm exonerating you. That's not your job. Your job is to find enough evidence to see if you can present it before other people to exonerate him. It is never a prosecutor's job to exonerate someone.
Right.
Mueller, in your May 29th press conference, and again in your opening remarks this morning, you made it pretty clear you wanted the special counsel report to speak for itself. You said at your press conference that that was the office's final position and we will not comment on any other conclusions or hypotheticals about the president. Now, you spent the last few hours of your life from Democrats trying to get you to answer all kinds of hypotheticals about the president, and I expect that it may continue for the next few hours of your life. I think you've stayed pretty much true to what your intent and desire was, but I guess regardless of that, the special counsel's office is closed and it has no continuing jurisdiction or authority. So what would be your authority or jurisdiction for adding new conclusions or determinations to the special counsel's written report?
As to the latter, I don't know or expect changes in conclusions that we included in our report.
So to that point, you addressed one of the issues that I needed to, which was from your testimony this morning, which some construed as a change to the written report. You talked about the exchange that you had with Congressman Lieu. I wrote it down a little bit different. I want to ask you about it so that the record's perfectly clear. I recorded that he asked you, quote, the reason you did not indict Donald Trump is because of the OLC opinion stating you cannot indict a sitting president, to which you responded, that is correct. That response is inconsistent, I think you'll agree, with your written report. I want to be clear that it is not your intent to change your written report. It is your intent to clarify the record to that.
As I started today, this afternoon, and added either a footnote or an endnote, what I wanted to clarify is the fact that we did not make any determination with regard to culpability in any way. We did not start that process down the road.
Terrific. Thank you for clarifying the record. A stated purpose of your appointment as special counsel was to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. As part of that full and thorough investigation, what determination did the special counsel office make about whether the Steele dossier was part of the Russian government efforts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election?
Again, when it comes to Mr. Steele, I defer to the Department of Justice.
Well, first of all, Director, I very much agree with your determination that Russia's efforts were sweeping and systematic. I think it should concern every American. That's why I want to know just how sweeping and systematic those efforts were. I want to find out if Russia interfered with our election by providing false information through sources to Christopher Steele about a Trump conspiracy that you determined didn't exist.
Well, I'm not going to discuss the issues with regard to Mr. Steele. And in terms of a portrayal of the conspiracies, we returned 2 indictments in the computer crimes arena. One GRU and another act of measures in which we lay out in excruciating detail what occurred in those 2 rather large conspiracies.
I agree with respect to that. But why this is important is an application and 3 renewal applications were submitted by the United States government to spy or surveil on Trump campaign Carter associate, or Carter Page, and on all 4 occasions, the United States government submitted the Steele dossier as a central piece of evidence with respect to that. Now, the basic premise of the dossier, as you know, was that there was a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, but the special counsel investigation didn't establish any conspiracy, correct?
Well, what I can tell you is that the events that you are characterizing here now is part of another matter that is being handled by the Department of Justice.
So he's copping out because he knows that this is being investigated by Hurwitz and Barr. Yeah. Okay, and but he's doing is saying that, oh, don't worry, Hurwitz and Barr are taking care of that part of it, the part of it where it was Clinton. My job was to go after Trump. Okay, my job was to only search and look at any Trump connections to Russia. Right. And that is what he is saying. That is what he believes. He knows that is against the law. He knows that is not what he was called to do. And I think there must have been another, because that's one section with Mueller. I think this is a...
You can't, time is short. I've got 5 minutes. Let's just leave it at, you can't find it, because I'll tell you why. It doesn't exist.
Here we go. And
the special counsel's job,
okay.
I can't find, and you said doesn't exist anywhere in the department policies, and you used it to write a report. And the very first line of your report, says, and as you read this morning, it authorizes the special counsel to provide the Attorney General with a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions reached by the special counsel. That's the very first word of your report, right?
That's correct.
Here's the problem, Director. The special counsel didn't do that. On volume 1, you did. On volume 2, with respect to potential obstruction of justice, the special counsel made neither a prosecution decision or a declination decision. You made no decision. You told us this morning and in your report that you made no determination. So respectfully, Director, you didn't follow the special counsel regulations. It clearly says, write a confidential report about decisions reached. Nowhere in here does it say, write a report about decisions that weren't reached. You wrote 180 pages. 180 pages about decisions that weren't reached, about potential crimes that weren't charged or decided. And respectfully, by doing that, you managed to violate every principle and the most sacred of traditions about prosecutors not offering extra prosecutorial analysis about potential crimes that aren't charged. So Americans need to know this as they listen to the Democrats and socialists on the other side of the aisle as they do dramatic readings from this report, that volume 2 of this report was not authorized under the law to be written. It was written to a legal standard that does not exist at the Justice Department. And it was written in violation of every DOJ principle about extra prosecutorial commentary. I agree with the chairman this morning when he said Donald Trump is not above the law. He's not. But he damn sure shouldn't be below the law, which is where volume 2 of this report puts him.
So good.
Boom.
There, I'm Chris Hayes.
So
go,
good.
Ratcliffe,
and
go.
so you can see the fake mainstream media because they called that Representative John Ratcliffe grandstands. Not like, hey, calls out,
oh my gosh.
The fake Russian collusion.
That's crazy.
All right, we got more. We're not done yet.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
It just keeps getting better. There's this. Okay, are you gonna you're gonna do that one?
Okay.
Really?
So yeah, here we go. Here's another one. He just looks.
The president committed the crime of obstruction.
This is where Robert Mueller looks and sounds completely confused, even with Jerry Nadler here of the Democrat chairman.
The president committed the crime of obstruction. You could not publicly state that in your report or here today.
Can you repeat the question, sir? You're going to have to repeat that for me. Can you repeat the last part of that question?
Yeah. Which?
Pardon?
Can you read the last question?
The last question was...
I want to make certain I got it accurate. I'm sorry, could you restate?
Each individual is in fact obligated to provide what's being demanded by the regulation or statute, meaning you don't have any wiggle room, right?
I'd have to look more closely at the statute.
Well, I just read it to you.
And what was the question, sir, if I might?
Correct.
And where are you reading from on that?
I'm reading from my question.
Then could you repeat it?
Okay.
Is that correct on the screen?
Can you repeat the question? And now that I have the language on the screen.
Is it correct?
What was the question?
No.
Pardon?
Can you read the last question?
The last question was...
I want to make certain I got it accurate.
Attorney number 2 in the Inspector General's report and Strzok both worked on your team, didn't they?
Pardon me? Can you ask?
They both worked on your team, didn't they?
I know. I heard Strzok. Who else were you talking about?
Attorney number 2 identified in the Inspector General's report.
Okay. And the question was?
Volume 2, page 87 and 88 of your report. True?
I'm sorry. Could you again repeat the question?
It was bad. It just kept going and going. Remember, Donald Trump is 73, Robert Mueller is 74, yet Trump looks and acts like a spring chicken next to doddering Mueller. Imagine what more the relatively indefatigable Trump could have done if he didn't have the Mueller dead weight hanging on his presidency for 2 years. Okay, Robert Mueller refuses to deny his office leaked information to CNN on the raid of Roger Stone's home.
To my point, are you aware of anyone providing information to the media regarding the raid on Roger Stone's home, including CNN?
I'm not going to speak to that.
Okay. Sir, given these examples as well as others, you must have realized that leaks were coming from someone associated with the special counsel's office. What I'd like to ask is,
I do not believe that.
Well, sir, this was your work. You're the only one, your office is the only one who had information regarding this. It had to come from your office.
So it was leaked to CNN that there was going to be a raid. It came from his office.
Right.
And however,
Right.
And there were lots of leaks. The giant sucking sound you hear all over Washington, D.C. is the remaining credibility the corporate media disappearing into a black hole created by Robert Mueller's testimony today. Dinesh D'Souza. Robert Mueller is not familiar with Fusion GPS. I repeat, Robert Mueller does not know anything about Fusion GPS. Is it possible that the Republicans have kidnapped the real Robert Mueller and substituted a mentally retarded lookalike in his place? Okay, here's another pure. This is Matt Gaetz.
Can you
This is about the collusion.
with confidence that the Steele dossier was not part of Russia's disinformation campaign?
No, as I said in my opening statement, that part of the building of the case predated me, and by at least 10 months.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Manafort's alleged crimes regarding tax evasion predated you. You had no problem charging them. And matter of fact, this Steele dossier predated the Attorney General, and he didn't have any problem answering the question. When Senator Cornyn asked the Attorney General the exact question I asked you, Director, the Attorney General said, and I'm quoting, "No, I can't state that with confidence." And that's one of the areas I'm reviewing. I'm concerned about it, and I don't think it's entirely speculative. Now, if something is not entirely speculative, then it must have some factual basis, but you identify no factual basis regarding the dossier or the possibility that it was part of the Russia disinformation campaign. Now, Christopher Steele's reporting is referenced in your report. Steele reported to the FBI that senior Russian foreign ministry figures, along with other Russians, told him that there was, and I'm quoting from the Steele dossier, extensive evidence of conspiracy between the Trump campaign team and the Kremlin. So here's my question. Did Russians really tell that to Christopher Steele, or did he just make it all up and was he lying to the FBI?
Let me back up a second, if I could, and say, as I said earlier, with regard to the Steele, that's beyond my purview.
No, it is exactly your purview, Director Mueller, and here's why. Only one of two things is possible, right? Either Steele made this whole thing up and there were never any Russians telling him of this vast criminal conspiracy that you didn't find, or Russians lied to Steele. Now, if Russians were lying to Steele to undermine our confidence in our duly elected president, that would seem to be precisely your purview, because you stated in your opening that the organizing principle was to fully and thoroughly investigate Russia's interference. But you weren't interested in whether or not Russians were interfering through Christopher Steele. And if Steele was lying, then you should have charged him with lying like you charged a variety of other people, but you say nothing about this in your report.
Well,
Meanwhile, Director, you're quite loquacious on other topics. You write 3,500 words about the June 9 meeting between the Trump campaign and Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya. You write on page 103 of your report that the president's legal team suggested, and I'm quoting from your report, that the meeting might have been a setup by individuals working with the firm that produced the Steele reporting. So I'm going to ask you a very easy question, Director Mueller. On the week of June 9, who did Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya meet with more frequently? The Trump campaign or Glenn Simpson, who was functionally acting as an operative for the Democratic National Committee?
Well, what I think is missing here is the fact that this is under investigation elsewhere in the Justice Department. And if I can finish, sir, and consequently, it's not within my purview. Department of Justice and FBI should be responsive to questions on this particular issue.
It is absurd to suggest that a operative for the Democrats was meeting with this Russian lawyer the day before and the day after the Trump Tower meeting, and yet that's not something you referenced. Now, Glenn Simpson testified under oath. He had dinner with Veselnitskaya the day before and the day after this meeting with the Trump team. Do you have any basis, as you sit here today, to believe that Steele was lying?
As I said before, and I'll say again, it's not my purview. Others are investigating what you
So it's not your purview to look into whether or not Steele's lying. It's not your purview to look into whether or not anti-Trump Russians are lying to Steele. And it's not your purview to look at whether or not Glenn Simpson was meeting with the Russians the day before and the day after you write 3,500 words about the Trump campaign meeting. So I'm wondering how these decisions are guided. I look at the Inspector General's report. I'm citing from page 404 of the Inspector General's report. It states, Page stated, Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right. Strzok replied, no, he's not. We'll stop it. Also in the Inspector General's report, there's someone identified as attorney number 2. Attorney number 2, this is page 419, replied, hell no, and then added, viva la resistance. Attorney number 2 in the Inspector General's report and Strzok both worked on your team, didn't they?
Pardon me? Can you ask?
They both worked on your team, didn't they?
I know. I heard Strzok. Who else were you talking about?
Attorney number 2 identified in the Inspector General's report.
Okay. And the question was?
Did he work for you? The guy who said viva la resistance.
Peter Strzok worked for me for a period of time, yes.
Yeah, but so did the other guy that said viva la resistance. And here's what I'm kind of noticing, Director Mueller. When people associated with Trump lied, you threw the book at him. When Christopher Steele lied, nothing. And so it seems to be that when Glenn Simpson met with Russians, nothing. When the Trump campaign met with Russians, 3,500 words. And maybe the reason why there are this discrepancies in what you focused on is because the team was so biased.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
Pledged to stop Trump.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Matt Gaetz is awesome.
Somebody called the
He is
Waylands.
just so.
So this is my own post. And by the way, I'm going to just my little commercial break here. So I was at Walmart, and I don't know if you guys know, but Trump is under a lot of scrutiny for saying to Ilhan Omar that she should just go back to Somalia, fix her country, and come back to our country.
And then show us how it's done.
So, and then another woman in a checkout line lied and a hate hoax saying that some guy told her to go back, but really she just had 20 items in a 10-item line. And she made this big, long thing about it. So everybody's like making a big, long thing about Trump's telling everybody to go back home. Well, I have found that it looks like Walmart is racist as well, because Mueller's testimony showed an old senile man who obviously didn't write the report. But I just left a Walmart and Strzok was right. You could smell the Trump support from Walmart's racist sign telling little kids, look at all the little kids with all the different races, to go back big. And we know that Trump says big and bigly a lot. So this is definitely a Trump sign. It's definitely racist telling all these children to go back.
Right.
Trump's racism is everywhere.
Okay. Just in case anybody doesn't get it, that was sarcasm.
That was a joke. Okay, we're not done.
Candidate. I was asked.
Did he mention the firing of James Comey in your discussion with him?
Cannot remember.
Pardon?
Cannot remember. Don't believe so, but I'm not going to be specific.
You don't remember. But if he did, you could have been a fact witness as to the president's comments and state of mind on firing James Comey.
I suppose that's possible.
Yeah. So most prosecutors want to make sure there's no appearance of impropriety. But in your case, you hired a bunch of people that did not like the president. Let me ask you, when did you first learn of Peter Strzok's animus toward Donald Trump?
In the summer of 2017.
You didn't know before he was hired?
I'm sorry?
You didn't know before he was hired for your team?
Know what?
Peter Strzok hated Trump.
Okay.
You didn't know that before he was made part of your team. Is that what you're saying?
I did not know that.
All right. When did you first learn?
When he did find out, I acted swiftly to have him reassigned elsewhere in the FBI.
Well, there's some discussion about how swift that was. But when did you learn of the ongoing affair he was having with Lisa Page?
About the same time I learned from Strzok.
Did you ever order anybody to investigate the deletion of all of their texts off of their government phones?
What?
Okay, so this is by far one of the best things I've seen in a long time.
Now, it's very difficult to read quickly.
Do you want to try to bring up my Twitter so people can read it? They need to read it in real time. So this is the same Hitler thing that everybody puts up for, and somebody did it right away with everything in this hearing. And I think you have enough information to get all of the jokes in here, and you're going to really enjoy it. As Michelle brings it up so you can see. Let's see. Before we're done,
did you just say before we done?
Before we're done, before we go to that, I'll play this one. Here's a supercut of everyone saying that Democrats had a really bad day with Robert Mueller.
Campaign conspired with the Russian government in its election interference activities.
At any time with the investigation, was your investigation curtailed or stopped or hindered?
No.
Was the ball advanced?
No. Impeachment's over.
Frankly, I think you've both been very kind. I think this has been a disaster for the Democrats, and I think it's been a disaster for the reputation of Robert Mueller.
Far from breathing life into the report, he kind of sucked the life out of the report. I thought he was boring. He seemed lost at times.
And there were times in the hearing when he was sharp as a tack. But we can't avoid the fact that there were times in the hearing that he was not. There were also times when it seemed like he was unfamiliar with parts of the investigation.
But ultimately, it didn't land where the Democrats said they were hoping, at least for part one on obstruction.
As they were using him for clarity, he'd somehow fog it up.
But he
it's supposed to be playing, Mom.
And so, look, on optics, this was a disaster.
After that, a series of questions and answers where at times it was halting and slow and painful.
When the name Lewandowski was mentioned, he didn't seem familiar with that. Now, I don't know if he couldn't hear or if actually he is not as well versed with this report as many of the people on this panel are right now.
Remember, House Judiciary Committee Democrats do believe they should start impeachment. If that's what Bob Mueller thought was needed to be done, he didn't do anything today to help advance that cause. If he believes that is where this should happen.
I don't think Nancy Pelosi is going to stand for her members, bring forth something that is going to obviously lose in the Senate, lose with the American public. And the problem with Mueller's testimony on this issue is that he had to carry the ball for them some way, whether he wanted to or not, at least by being a vigorous, strong, rock-solid prosecutor. And he looked like somebody who'd slowed a step or two, and perhaps as the Republicans are starting to put out there, maybe he wasn't even in control of all those angry Democrats. Maybe he's a figurehead, somebody from the past that they put there so they could do their dirty work.
Wow. I can't believe the media actually had to tell the truth on that.
It
was so
Do you know
bad.
that I actually felt like I got a word from the Lord yesterday that it's over, the fake news. Like, they had a good run of it, of lying for 3 years.
Yeah.
And
they went all out. They went
not
full
reporting
steam,
the
right?
truth, right?
They went full steam. Like, they played it up. It's like they went out into the middle of the desert with a tank of gas, hoping that they could make it to the other side, and they didn't.
And so I think that they're going to have to start going back to real reporting. And that was because I had heard something. I was listening to the news. Our local 12 news, which is, I guess, CBS, was reporting on relevant issues. It was reporting on Epstein, and it was reporting on the death penalty being reinstated. And as I was listening, historically for the past 3 years, it's been very left-leaning, and they were
anti-Trump,
and they were having to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that the game is up.
A little bit more neutral.
And I think they're going to have to find themselves coming back to the middle. And I think that even CNN is going to have to start like, okay, it didn't work. We tried it, but if we keep lying, then we're literally going to be buried. The people, viewers understand truth. They understand lies. And you will not have viewers anymore if you continue to lie to them.
That if they tried to spin that, the viewers would literally throw up and just be all done. Like, I'm never coming back. Because if they watched it, everybody knows the blah, 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 that's all, folks. You know what I mean? Like, it was a bumbling, fumbling mess. Whether he meant to do it or not, they had to admit to it. I'll play one more before you get to that, because this is backed by popular demand. 2 years of Russiagate covered in 2 minutes.
Today is a turning point. Today was historically bad for President Trump. Today was a turning point.
A turning point.
We're at a turning point here.
The beginning of the end for the Trump presidency.
We have another bombshell.
Mike Pence might have to assume the office of the presidency.
Rumblings of the word impeachment.
Breaking news.
Another bombshell out of the White House.
I believe this is the beginning of the end.
I do too.
It's really the beginning of the end.
He may be feeling the walls closing in on him.
All the walls closing in on him.
The walls closing in on him.
Breaking news, a new bombshell.
One astrologer says this means the beginning of the end for President Donald Trump.
Trump will resign.
Trump is going to resign.
Is this the tipping point? I know we've said it over and over.
You think this is a tipping point?
And over and over.
This is a tipping point.
And over and over.
Breaking news, President Trump off the rails.
It was the beginning of the end today.
The beginning of the end. Breaking news tonight, new bombshell. This is the beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The walls are closing in.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in.
Breaking overnight bombshell.
This is a very dramatic day, and I think it might be near a tipping point. Do you think this is a tipping point?
December 1st, 2017, you can mark it down. This is the day that everything changed.
The beginning of the end?
Beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the end.
The beginning of the...
We begin tonight with the bombshell. Donald Trump is in a lot of trouble.
Trump is in trouble.
The president will resign.
Another hour, another bombshell.
This is a tipping point.
Trump's going down.
This president could be impeached.
Resignation. I don't think this president is going to serve out his term. Mr. Trump will not serve out his term. He will not serve out his term. No way. No how. Breaking news.
Absolute bombs.
Donald Trump is not. He's done. And it's over. It's over.
The walls closing in.
The walls closing in. This is going to be the Achilles heel.
Breaking news tonight. I expect Trump to depart.
This week will be the watershed week. Trump is in big trouble.
Trump's in a lot of trouble.
It's a sign of a terrified old man who feels the
walls
closing in. The walls
are increasingly
closing in on him.
Tonight, the walls
are closing in.
Today changed everything. This is the beginning of the end.
Today, the biggest
tipping point for the Trump administration.
What has
historic day. The bombshells.
He's underwater. He feels the walls closing in.
Turning point.
We may be at a tipping point.
It's the beginning of
The end.
The beginning
of the end.
Another bombshell.
Bombshell. Bombshell. Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
Bombshell.
This is a bombshell.
It is.
Guess what, guys? I'm going to tell you today is the beginning of the end of fake news, and you can take that to the bank.
You know what? As I was watching that, I actually want to give a round of applause to these reporters and to all the Democrats because,
oh my word, they're actors.
You know, the devil always takes something that God does and thinks that he can use it for his own advantage.
Yeah.
As Christians, we do something that's called a confession of faith.
Yes.
And we state something.
Yeah, call those things that be not as though they were.
And it has real power and effect in the
it
spirit
does,
realm.
and they tried to do it.
And they tried to do it, but there's no power because it doesn't work when you have lies coming against the truth. It only works when it's the truth.
Truth against the lies.
Right? So when God wills
you're sick,
something,
you say, by his stripes I am healed.
Then you're actually confessing the truth, and you are putting it into motion. But when it's not true, it doesn't work that way. So here they are showing that what they have is a religion.
Well, let me tell you something else. It's literally like when
time for a Leah shuffle.
It's literally like when Gideon was up against the those who were worshiping Baal.
Yeah.
And he said, "Whose God is going to win this shebang?" And they had 2 piles of wood set up, and he said, "I dare you. You get your God to catch that wood on fire." And so all day long they cut themselves, they fasted, they screamed, and nothing happened. And he said, "Well, I can tell you what.
Go get some water.
Pour all of my wood with water, and drench it so it's soaking wet." And he called on God. Bam, gone. Fire.
Consume the whole thing.
And so what Michelle is saying is exactly right. They were trying to do the whole confession of faith thing, just
to
like
their God,
to their
they
God.
worship.
Exactly. Globalism, elitism, control the people. But what they didn't understand is that my fellow believers in Christ have been waking up from a slumber. They were put to sleep as David Barton
corrected you, saying that's Elijah you're talking about.
Oh,
that was Elijah.
It was Gideon.
Was it Gideon? Yeah, because then Gideon went and cried underneath the thing right after.
No, Elijah cried. Was it Elijah? It was Elijah. Well,
no, you're right, because it was Gideon, Elijah because Jezebel was coming after him.
No. But Gideon.
Now we're going to have a biblical discussion.
Well, which one was Gideon?
Gideon had an army.
No, Gideon was before Elijah. You know what? We'll bring you a break in a little bit. We'll figure it out.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. That was Elijah, but
because then he went and sat down. He cried because after that amazing thing happened, and then Jezebel comes and goes threatening Elijah, and then he cries, and it's kind of like, okay, Elijah, you're a big baby.
Which one was Gideon? Gideon wasn't an army. You know. Gideon did the same kind of faith thing. Gideon was caught. He was doing his wheat, and Gideon's army. Gideon's army did a thing.
Right.
Gideon did a thing. Well, we'll bring you a break.
Well, they reduced the men down to 300 is what Gideon did.
I'll go back.
It was Elijah.
Okay, Elijah.
Thank you, Gonzolas.
All right. Okay, so
the book of Judges. It was Elijah who prayed for the rain.
All right. Well, yeah, rain. That's rain. Later's on's rain. So anyways, these people do confessions of faith, right? And that's what God wants you to do. So you get into the Word of God and you find out what God says about you. By His stripes I am healed. He provides everything that I need. The blessed are the peaceful and the meek and all those things. So find out what God has for you and speak those things over yourself and speak those things over your family. We'll look up what was Gideon. Okay, what's Gideon?
And we need to look up what is Gideon.
No, but what was Gideon's thing? I thought it was something similar. I thought he called down things too, but maybe he's just a fighter.
Well, Elijah called down fire to consume 50 men. We do know that. But I think that was after the. That was after he called down fire for the wood and all that.
I guess it was an attack. I guess it was a fight. For some reason, I always thought Gideon was the guy who did that. But anyways, my point is that these people, like Michelle said, they're operating under a cultic mindset, and it's getting ready to stop. Go ahead and play the thing.
Okay. Yeah, this is really fun. All right, I got earbuds here. Now, which
I
one?
don't need the earbuds because I've watched it like 100 times. Start with the first one.
Make sure I'm doing the right one first.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Okay.
Geschossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg-Marsdorf-Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steiners wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodel, Krebs und Butter.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer schickt Sie? Das hier ist Wagen! Sie meinen Befehl zu widersetzen! So weit ist das also gekommen. Das Militär hat mich belogen! Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS! Die gesamte Generalität ist nichts weiter als ein Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge!
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbringen...
Die sind Feiglinge! Verreiter, Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich!
Die Generalität ist das Geschmeiß des deutschen Volkes! Sie ist ohne Ehre! Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält! Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen nur behindert. Es hat mir jeden nur gegen Widerstand in den Weg gelegt. Ich hätte gut daran getan.
Okay, so they had to break it in two on Twitter so that the video would fit.
Wie Stalin! Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein auf mich gestellt, ganz Europa erobert. Verräter! Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Verräter werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden es saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne.
Alle Befehle sind in den Wind gesprochen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jage ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf.
Barton knows everything. And Trump's
Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
That is the best line in the entire thing. And
Yes.
Trump is going to be president forever. Now, when we say that, it's a joke because we do not believe that Trump should be president forever. Now, Leah, now that you did your research.
Yeah, he did offer up Bullocks, and I think I got him too mixed up. I got him mixed up for a second in my head. All right, so here they're asked about Trump's aides, and I like his response here.
What do you say to Robert Mueller?
Let me just tell you something. I know you always have a question. You mean my White House aides lied? What about his aides? What about Mueller's aides? He didn't say that at all. You're untruthful when you ask. You are untruthful. When you ask that question, you're untruthful. And you know who else is untruthful? His aides. And Weissman was untruthful. And Weissman got caught just like he did with Arthur Anderson, where he lost in the Supreme Court 9-0. His aides were very untruthful. And they put Mueller, not at all. They put Mueller in a very bad position. His aides put him in a very bad position. And if you were ever truthful, you'd be able to write the truth.
Oh my goodness.
If you were ever truthful, you would be able to write the truth.
Wow.
So, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, looks like, all right. Supreme Court, this is breaking news. 1 hour ago while we were going live. Supreme Court is trending. Wow, big victory on the wall. The United States Supreme Court overturns lower court injunction, allows southern border wall to proceed. Big win for border security and rule of law.
Wow.
So
that's really shocking.
Right here, guys. Breaking news, Supreme Court rules 5-4, so John Roberts joins in, to allow the Trump administration to use Pentagon funds to build part of the border wall. Now, the 4 justices know that he can do this. They're just partisan and don't want him to.
Exactly.
Okay? So it was $2.5 billion in military funds.
Was it Ginsburg?
No. Liberals cannot be happy with Ginsburg. Berates Democrats for wanting to pack the Supreme Court. That's different.
Okay, that's different.
Nobody's fought harder to secure our border than President real Donald Trump, and today he scores a massive victory at the Supreme Court. So he can. It's just $2.5 billion. It's not that much. It shouldn't be that big of a deal, but that's breaking news. That's breaking news. So here we go. There we have.
That's awesome. Even though 5 people in black robes should not be deciding law in our country, they are supposed to be upholding law, in which case it looks like that happened here.
Right.
They declared, listen, this is within the law.
Right.
The president has the legal authority to do this, and we are going to uphold that. What they are not supposed to be doing is creating law.
Right.
So this is one of those instances where I would say that the Supreme Court acted within their purview.
Wow, that was a good idea. That was a good way of using that word. That was a good job. So this has been unearthed. I guess Ilhan Omar, who we are all going to continue to talk about because she should not be in Congress right now. She should be deported. She should not go back to Somalia of her own free will. We do not believe that Ilhan is her first name. Omar is not her last name. However, this has been unearthed. A recent interview, recent but not recent, previous interview with Al Jazeera, telling people that they should profile white men.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but a fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise...
How are you going to do that? And plus, by the way, more homicides are by actually people of color than by white people, and that's taking into account, that's like numbers, not by percentage. Yeah. That's just numbers. More people of color commit more murders in this country.
Well, but that's largely due to gang-related violence.
It is largely due to gang-related violence.
Which, if they were so worried about deaths, that's where they would hurl all of their efforts.
Exactly.
But when she talked about the radicalization of white men, you know, you don't really hear too much of the radicalization of white men. It's not as popular. And if you want to say it's amongst white supremacist groups, it's actually also amongst like Antifa and other left-wing violent sects.
Right. Speaking of violence, we have this week a throw water on police thing going on, hitting them in the head with buckets.
You're kidding.
No, and the police, in order not to escalate the situations, have been walking away. So it's not just police, but
they're ordered to walk away to allow themselves to be assaulted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then the community event organized by a local chamber of commerce in Chicago included a piñata of an ICE agent and a painted caricature of President Trump for kids to throw balls at.
And that was supposed to be a party for kids in Chicago, but it's creating a lot of controversy. They set up a piñata with ice on it, hitting a piñata made to look like an ICE agent. It was a family-oriented community day, but the video is now being shared on social media, and the video also shows kids throwing balls into a painted image of President Trump. Organizers claim they didn't know the things were going on at the event, but some are applauding the move. Others call it ignorant and disrespectful, saying it teaches kids to hate.
Wow.
How is that even a thing? Like, others are applauding it? Who's applauding it?
Wow.
All right. Who's applauding this? This is, ICE is just trying to do their jobs and chaos ensues. A bunch of people get arrested here. ICE is trying to arrest somebody to be deported.
In a due process of a request for deferred action for Samuel.
No!
Stop!
No!
This is embarrassing.
No!
Right.
They're literally attacking an ICE agent, by the way.
Hey, my name is Robert O'Fury. I'm the Assistant Field Office Director over ERO here in the state of North Carolina. So, right now, I'm sorry to say this, but he's under arrest. And he's coming with us. Listen to me.
He's a...
On whom?
ICE agent.
On whom?
On the ICE agent.
What ICE agent?
We'll figure that out later.
You joking?
Oh my gosh.
This is what Obama... This is what Obama does to people. They're deranged, crazy heads.
They are deranged. Wow.
They're not American citizens. They're not American citizens.
They don't understand that ICE doesn't just go in randomly to illegal aliens' homes and just deport them. If they are deporting someone, it's because they did something more criminal than being here illegally.
Exactly.
And it's actually sad that these people are under the false premise that that ICE is literally just deporting anybody. Patriot Gallery, you have something to add?
I just want to mention the white supremacist crimes that nobody, it's like the elephant in the room, nobody's mentioning. The Democrats, what they do with the inner cities, and what happens to all the colored people, you know, even the white people, all people, and what they do in the inner
We all
cities
have color in our skin, by the way.
is white supremacy. They destroy lives. They hold people back. They hold people down. All the welfare and government housing and all the drugs. This is the Democratic Party is the white supremacist party.
Yeah.
Just look at Los Angeles, any major city where that's a sanctuary city. Oregon, Washington State, Seattle, all these, Portland, Oregon? I can't say it.
Portland, Oregon.
I can't get it out of my mouth. Okay. So look what they do. Mostly people affected are people that are minorities. So you can see this white supremacist, and then the guy, who is he that's a white supremacist with Charlottesville? Richard somebody?
Spencer.
Okay. He is a Democrat. He is totally pro-Obama. He backed and support Obama completely.
Yeah.
White supremacy is Democrat. And the white supremacy is seen in the problems in your inner city, especially Chicago.
Yeah.
That's what happens there. Black people shooting black people. That's all because of white supremacy by Democrats.
Exactly.
That's absolutely true, Mom. So here, ABC News and police in Washington, D.C. are asking for the public's help in identifying a group of teens who brutally assault these two men, seemingly out of nowhere. And you can see the one teen pointing, should I do this guy? And then they just start hammering. I think that I don't know any more details on this. I'm pretty sure it's it might be a game. I know that a lot of gangs are into this. I know you can get points for just randomly going up and beating up people, and it's part of like the gang initiation things. And
his arms, the way that they're flailing, like he's passed out.
Yeah, they knocked him out.
He was knocked out.
And then one girl comes back up to spit on him. So I don't know
if they're okay.
I don't know.
I think next time we need to find out if they are before we traumatize people, including myself.
I know.
With a video like that.
I know. And I'm gonna I'll show you this then.
Let's show something else really bad.
Well, the police get water thrown in them.
Oh my gosh! I thought you were gonna say we're gonna end on like a happy note.
No,
you're gonna end up with more bad. Oh my gosh! Can we need to put the bad news in the middle somewhere?
NBC arrests man accused of throwing water on police. 3 arrested after buckets on police. 3 arrested after videos of NYPD cops doused with buckets of water go viral. It was supposed to be a prank.
We go now to the video that sparked
not a prank.
Shock and outrage. The NYPD has arrested 3 people in connection to officers being doused with water. Now, in the video, you see officers drenched with the water as they try to make an arrest.
There's a couple.
When it gets News 4's Michael George live in Harlem, and Michael, the chief, says
they threw a bucket
at his actions will never be tolerated.
Yeah, that's right, and some of the suspects are actually being interviewed by detectives right now. But here's the thing. Only one of the 3 arrested is actually accused of dumping water on a police officer. The other 2 are charged with dumping water on a woman who just happened to be there. That said, all 3 are now facing criminal charges. Now, these videos have gone viral, sparked a lot of outrage. It shows a crowd dumping water on officers as people laugh and record video. In one case, an officer is actually hit in the head with a bucket. There was an incident in Harlem and a separate one in Brooklyn. The police commissioner and mayor among those denouncing the actions of the people in the videos. Police are still looking for more suspects, but they've arrested 3 men in their late 20s. They're facing charges including disorderly conduct and harassment. City leaders say disrespecting police officers won't be tolerated.
But I don't know about the other one.
Those actions were unacceptable. They put everyone in danger, including the officers, including the public.
Now, the person who actually threw a bucket at an officer and struck him in the head has not yet been arrested. He will likely face more serious charges. We're live in Harlem. Michael George, News 4 New York.
So that's Obama's America, by the way. So we are going to end up something funny. Babylon Bee, CDC, people with dirt on Clintons have an 843% greater risk of suicide.
Now remember, the Babylon Bee is satire.
Yeah. So, according to a report from the Centers for Disease Control released on Thursday, people with inside compromising knowledge of Bill and Hillary Clinton's financial and political dealings are 843% more likely to commit suicide. We've never seen a single risk factor cause a spike of this magnitude, said the CDC. Interestingly, in spite of their increased suicide risk, people with dirt on Clintons rarely show any warning signs of suicide, and they never leave a suicide note. Remarking about how abnormal it is, the spokesperson again stressed the significance of the data. Therefore, we advise any American with detrimental information about Bill and Hillary Clinton or the Clinton Foundation to forget about it as quickly as possible to avoid a greatly increased probability of taking their own life. I swear, and that's all we know.
Oh my gosh. They do have an increased probability of suicide.
So back to the Mueller report, just a second.
Special counsel Robert Mueller will...
Let's see. Robert Mueller's will be exposed, and he was exposed as the magician of omission on Russia. Okay, that's what happened. This was actually the day before, but that's what happened. He was the magician of omission. I think that whoever came up with that title is pretty crazy. While most of the political world focused on its attention elsewhere, Special Prosecutor John Durham's team quietly reached out this summer to a lawyer representing European academic Joseph Milford, one of the earliest and most mysterious figures in the now closed Russian collusion case. An investigator told Swiss attorney Stefan Roth that Durham's team wanted to interview Milford, and that was the Durham that you heard in the joke. Milford. Milford. Or at the very least, review a recorded deposition the professor gave in summer of 2018 about his role in the drama involving Donald Trump. And that's what it really was. Just a orchestrated drama.
And orchestrated.
That's what I said. Just
a orchestrated. I just grammatically
I said
a orchestrated.
Just a
an.
Okay, there we have it.
That's the grammar Nazi.
The contact confirmed by multiple sources and contemporary. I speak so fast that it just to get it all out there.
Nobody would have noticed. I'm sorry, I said something.
Contemporaneous email sent an unmistakable message. Durham, the U.S. attorney handpicked by Attorney General William Barr to determine whether the FBI committed abuses during the Russian investigation, is taking a second look at one of the noteworthy figures and the conclusions of former special counsel Robert Mueller's final report. The evidence I reviewed suggests Mueller's handiwork may be exposed for glaring omissions that, when brought to public light, leave key questions unanswered, especially about how the FBI's unprecedented probe of the Trump campaign started. Durham is focused on determining whether any government or private figures who came in contact with the Trump campaign in 2016 were engaged in improper surveillance. For those who don't remember, Ms. Milford is a Maltese-born academic with a VIP Rolodex who frequented Rome and London for years and engaged at the highest levels of Western diplomatic and intelligence circles. Mueller's team alleged that Milford is the person who fed a story in spring 2016 to Trump campaign advisor George Papadopoulos about Moscow possessing these emails of Hillary Clinton. It was the earliest known contact in the now debunked collusion narrative. Mueller concluded that Milford was a person with extensive Russian ties who planted the story about the Clinton emails in Moscow and then lied about his dealings with Papadopoulos when interviewed by the FBI. Papadopoulos has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Milford, but Milford was not charged with planting it all.
Wow.
The FBI determined that Milford planted this false information. Okay?
Well, and I think, who was it that pointed that out? Was it Gates?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or was it Jordan? But anyway, it was Jordan in the very start of the show. He calls out the fact, like, General Flynn and all of these other people.
Nunes, I think.
All these other people were charged. And it gets summed up at the end with literally, you have played favoritism.
Right.
You have charged all these people on the Trump campaign or on the Trump side and left all of your people, you know, good to go.
Right.
So, are we done?
So, in a May 2019 letter from Nunes to U.S. intelligence officials corroborates this account here that Milford was a longtime cooperator of Western Intel, who was asked specifically by his contacts at Link University in Rome and the London Center of International Law Practice, two academic groups with ties to the Western diplomacy and intelligence, to meet with Papadopoulos. Told by these Western intelligence groups to meet with him. Then days after the March dinner with Papadopoulos, Milford received instructions from this group, this Link superiors, to put Papadopoulos in contact with Russians, including a think tank figure named Ivan Timofey and a woman he was instructed to identify to Papadopoulos as Vladimir Putin's niece. Milford knew the woman was not the Russian president's niece, but rather a student who was involved with both Link and these other campuses, and the professor believed there was an effort underway to determine whether Papadopoulos was an agent provocateur seeking foreign contacts. And so it was all. It was all a setup.
Yeah.
It was all a setup, and that's what I think that I'm ending on this because that's where it started. It's all a setup. It was all a setup from beginning to end. Donald Trump, obviously, and we all know this is not a Russian agent. Nobody on his team was a Russian agent. The FBI and the elites had to try to set him up to make him look like a Russian agent. And that was their insurance policy.
Right.
And that's the end.
So that's when we say it's not just a conspiracy theory if it's just a conspiracy and it's just the truth.
Exactly.
So Gio said, my guys can lie, but your guys can't. And that's what it boils down to.
Right.
So before we sign off here, and I'm going to do this really quickly, I'm not going to actually read it even though I had wanted to because we're running short on time. And that is, I want to switch over to give you some good news. And that is Nemo has been found. I gave that story on my Bible study, which you guys can check out on John 15 and 16.
Last Friday we did our show and Nemo was not here.
That's right. And so here's my Bible study. Now, Patriot Gallery, I have recruited her and she's doing a good job. She has agreed to help me put all of our videos up onto the website because that's something that I've been kind of lacking in doing. So you can go to resistancechicks.com. Maia put the link in the chat. Thank you, Maia. And you can watch these different videos that Patriot Gallery put together, my Bible study. And I just wrote this article today, and it's called America is Great Because America is Good, 400 Years, Plymouth 2020. We've been talking about Plymouth 2020, how you can get involved, how you can be excited even if you can't go, donations and things like that. I've got all the links in here. In addition to, I send some encouraging notes about what's happening in our country. So when we talk about good news, Patriot Gallery just wrote a blog on Resistance Chicks blog spot that I'm going to edit and hopefully add here to resistancechicks.com about good news and how we should be spreading good news. So when Lee and I come to you on our show and we bring you the news, yes, we want to bring you the tragedy and the awful things that happen, but we want to counter that with, guys, God is moving and we have good news to bring to you. I've been listening to a lot of David Barton recently and a lot of our other, going back and listening to anybody that wants to talk about the godly foundation of our founding fathers. And what I'm seeing over and over and over again is the fact that, like, the preachers in the pulpits used to always come and take the news of the day and then give you scriptures and give you a godly perspective of what's happening. And I would hope that here at Resistance Chicks, Isaiah 58 Ministries, God's Little Acre, that is what we give you guys. A godly perspective on the news of the day, which includes the fact that God is moving, and you have every reason to be hopeful. So I want you to go to resistancechicks.com. I want you to read this article. I would appreciate it and count it a personal favor if you would share it on all your social media pages and get the word out, because it's a birthday of America's of the Pilgrims landing in 1620, and so I want all Americans to be excited about Plymouth 2020, regardless of whether you get to take the pilgrimage to Plymouth or not. To just be excited. We would celebrate America's birthday, in 2076, right? We're going to celebrate America's 400 or 300 year anniversary. That's right, 300 year birthday. So all of America would do that all year long. So the same thing with this, our 400 year anniversary of Plymouth, the Pilgrims landing in Plymouth. So
Lord, let me see the day.
Yes, Lord, let me see the day. Yeah, I think I could hit that. I think we can both hit that for sure. We could aim for 100. So, all right, you guys. And then we're going to see a far different country in 2076. We're going to see a renewal of the birthing of what was going on, the righteousness in our nation. And that's what I wrote about today in my article. So we love you guys, and God loves you. God bless. Remember, it's not just a conspiracy theory.
It's the truth.
We want you to like, we want you to comment, we want you to share our articles, we want you to share the videos, get the word out there. Thank you to all of our moderators and everybody that was here supporting us. They really, really heavily censored us here today with viewers. So if you were here intentionally, and I thank you for that. So
what can wash away my sin? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And what can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And what can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And what can make me whole again? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And for my pardon this I see. Oh, nothing but the blood of Jesus. And for my cleansing this my plea. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And this is all my hope and peace. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And this is all my righteousness. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Now by this I'll overcome. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. And now by this I'll reach my home. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Oh, precious is the flow that makes me white as snow. No other fount I know. Nothing but the blood of Jesus. Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
All right, hot dog. Good song for today, Leah. Good song choice. We will see you back here on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And what are we going to talk
about? Mojo, baby. You got it, Mojo. We'll see how far it's going to go.
All right, so we're going to break it down. We're going to give you both sides.
Was really funny.
That was that up. You are like a rapper.
We're gonna break down Mojo and his Mojo and see how far it's going to go.
Okay. So, Boris Johnson is Prime Minister in the UK.
He is Prime Minister. He's like legit the Prime Minister, like right this second. He like putting people in his cabinet, like Priti Patel.
So, no. He literally this was the cabinet that was there, and he literally went, bye-bye cabinet, and he started got rid of 2/3. So, we're going to break that down for
Brexit
you guys
only
on
cabinet
on Sunday. It's going to be an excellent show. So, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be here or be not here. Okay. All right, I hope you guys have a wonderful, blessed Friday evening. Go read my article and share it. Good night, guys.
I was called